Hi guys, today I want to talk to you about writing. Now, writing is a very important part of scholarship tests. Now, why is it considered to be crème or de la crème? It means cream of the cream. That means the best of the best. Now, scholarship tests are difficult. Because when you think about it, about 250 to 400 students turn up at the gate of a private school. And you probably would get about 20 students would merit an interview. Now, if you talk about older years that turn up at the same time, so you have some students in year 5, and then you have the bulk of the student would be in year 6 try to get a scholarship into year 7, and then you have a few students in year 9 try to get a scholarship into year 10. Okay, now so the bulk of the student would be trying to get a scholarship into year 7, and you think about 15 students of the year 6 would be invited for an interview. So the idea is that your child would have to do very, very well and get into the top 15 to get a chance. Now, writing is very, very important because it is really hard. Now, from my experience, you're looking at the result of the test. I would say that creative writing is consistently the most challenging task in any of these private school scholarship tests. Now, the general idea is that a kid needs to get into the top 4%, and it would be good to get into the top 2% or even 1%. To be considered to be really good. And a lot of the private schools will look at the score in writing because the score in writing is generally low. So, what does it take to become a top writer in a scholarship test? Alright, here are the observations that I get over so many years. When I have year 8 to year 9 students go to a private school to apply for scholarship tests, what I find is that a lot of the time the best year 5 to year 6 year writers write better than the year 8 to year 10 student. So it's very, very odd that the older student, they don't write better than the young student, even though they're supposed to be able to read better, they're supposed to have better vocab, and they have more years in school doing the writing and all that. So why is it that the older student generally do not write better than the year 5 to year 6 year student? And sometimes the best year 5 and year 6 student actually write better than the older student. Now, another observation I see is that some students have excellent spelling, grammar, and vocab. But a lot of the students struggle to make any sense. When they write, what they write just wouldn't make sense. Now, the other thing is that if you don't get a theme into your story, you can't get into the top 4%. Now, and I find out that training students to get a theme into a story is a huge problem. And even if they can do it at home, when they go into a scholarship test, they can't get it in. It is an endless problem. When I ask them to come back and copy down what they wrote in the test, and I look at the work And I was sort of saying, oh my God, you just don't have any theme. Now, the other thing to consider is that for anyone really, try to write a good story within 25 minutes. And the length must be between around 350 to 400 words. It's a challenge. It is huge. It's very difficult to get anything good. Now, finally, I find that some students, what they would do is to give up on creative writing. That means that they don't write a new story. They prepare story at home, or they read, story written by other people, tutors, any source. And then when you go that way and they go into an exam and they try to adapt, they try to copy the story in and try to, put in hooks and change a little bit to fit to the prompt. Now, they don't even do the job really well. And marker are not stupid. Now, marker can look at the writing of the student and figure out whether that story is really a new story that fit perfectly, or trying to address the prompt, or is it, just a kind of story that the student have written at home and try to adapt. Now, what I find is that when the student use a strategy to write at home and they try to adapt the story that they write at home to an exam, they probably can get into the top 10%, but it's very difficult to get to the top 4%. They really need to be creative and write a brand new story that will fit the prompt really well. And it has to be good. It has to have a theme. It has to be resonant. It must create impression on the reader to be able to get well into the top 4%, even like the top 2%. All right, now, so I try to figure out the answers to the thing that I see. And I come up with a few ideas. Now, the first thing that I suggest is that we should look back at the idea of creativity. What exactly is creativity? Now, this word is a word that have been abused by people. And people keep on saying, you have to be creative, and and they think that their kids are creative and all that kind of thing. But what exactly is creativity? Now, this is hard. You have to know what it is. Okay. The general definition that many people would agree is creativity is the ability to come up with new ideas to do things in different ways that lead to better outcomes. Now, you can do things in different ways that lead to worse outcome, that lead to terrible outcome. Now, nobody would call that being creative. It has to lead to a better outcome. Now, what it is. And the idea has to be new, and you do it in different ways that people, don't know about, All right, so this is a general idea. All right, think about it. How many people can be creative this way? Now, just the idea that you have to do better than the old way. New ideas, all right? Not old ideas. And you got to do it in different ways, not the old way. Now, that suggests that you have to know the old way. You have to know the ways that didn't work so well. And you have to come up with something better than that. All right, we'll go back into that later. However, when it comes to talking about young kids, we can't use this because kids cannot, do this sort of thing. They don't know the old way even. They don't know all the different ways. They don't know a lot. So the idea of creativity for children is probably something not quite the same. Now, this is what I come up with. Okay, what I think is that creativity in children is the ability to find ways to effectively do something without being taught or shown how to do it. So, for example, if your child is between 1 and 2 years old, and suddenly your child figure out how to wipe his bottom in a proper way without being taught or shown how to do it. Oh yeah. So in that way you can say that your child is very creative because your child figure out how to wipe his own bottom. But the problem here is that have you ever seen any child suddenly know how to wipe his or her own bottom? No, never. You train, you toilet train the child, and it takes you a lot of time, and it's always a mess. If you're lucky to get a child, being able to wipe his own bottom by year 2. All right, so this is why creativity in children is something we have to be careful. The idea that a child can be creative, do something useful without being taught or trained is a bit of a problem. Okay, so the next question that I want to talk to you about is what does it take to become a truly creative person? Now, this is what I think. Now, if you refer to the Bloom's taxonomy, now this guy is really good. He created, the sort of theory behind how human acquire knowledge. Alright, so his idea has been behind the American assessment system for so many decades. Now, he drew a pyramid. Now at the bottom, you have remembering. That is the basic. Basically, you recall what you hear, what you see, what you experience. So it's just the recall of specific facts, no thinking at all, just recall. Alright, then the next level, you'll be able to grasp the meaning of material, that you read, that you hear, or demonstration that you watch. So you start to understand. Now, the next higher level is you apply the information that you learn in a similar situation. So you see something that's similar to what you have seen, and you apply the information that you have learned so you can get a job done. Now, so the first 3 levels are actually where the bulk of people, work at. Now, the bulk of all the tasks that we do, that's what we do. Now, to the 4th level, it starts to get a bit sophisticated. You analyze the information, and you'll be able to see the relationship between the different parts. So you have a deeper understanding of the whole thing. Then you go to the 5th level. Now this is pretty high. Now you start to compare the different techniques, the different set of information, and you start to make judgment, and you start to say, well, one is better than the other, and then you sort of be able to explain why is one way of doing things is better than another. And finally, you get to the top. This is the cream, where you use the information from your analysis, information from your evaluation, and you try to create a new way of doing things. So you use the information to create a new way of doing things. Now this is actually a modified version of the original. I remember that the original at the top is called synthesis, that put everything together to build something new. Alright, now you see creativity is right at the top of the pyramid. Now, the reason why he drew a pyramid, because the bulk of people don't do that. The bulk of people work at the bottom 3 levels. Very few people become creator. So I suppose the sort of creative, the word that we use, the meaning of the word, the creative, is not quite what the truth is. Creativity is right at the top. It requires that you can perform every single thing, from remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, before you get to creating. And very few people get to the top. And that means you have to know how things get done in the past. You know what's wrong with it, what not so good about it. And you have to get to the level where you come up with new ideas. And new idea may not be enough. You may need new technology. So you have to come up with new technology, a complete new way of dealing with things to get the job done in a better way. All right, so it takes a lot of effort. Okay, so the idea that you think that somehow a young kid, can be creative, a student can be creative and do something great and new. No, forget it. The student have to be trained. The student have to be taught how to do things. The student have to master so many things to get to the level to be able to analyze, to evaluate, and finally to create. Now, so most of the time, now let's get back to the idea I have here about a kid. I think that for a young kid to find way to effectively do something without being taught or shown. But the truth is, that really never happened. The truth is, you really have to train the kid to the level where the kid can actually create something new. Now, writing is like that. If you don't train the kid to know the narrative structure and to understand about rising actions and complications and the use of the technique of repetition to build a climax and try to weave a theme in and all that kind of thing, the kid will never be able to get to the top. Simple as that. So writing is really difficult and the kids need all the training to get there. Now, some of the kids are a bit more creative than others in the sense that they see how things get done and they can quickly copy, learn the way to get it done, and they can quickly come up with some ideas and they are quick in putting the ideas together and write better. Now, and that is why you sort of look at the kid and say, geez, so the kid is really creative. Yeah, that's what it is. But without the proper training, there's no way to get the kid to the level where they can write really well and get to the top. All right, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what I offer on my website. Now, what I have on my website is a competition where everyone, all the kids can join in and write. And if they get to the top, they are surely, at the level to go to these scholarship, tests and be able to get right to the top. The top 4% is what we are talking about. To help the student to get it to the top, what I do for the student is I design so many modules. Now I have Story Starter. It helps students to write the beginning of the story. I have Writing Planner. That's, I help the student who don't know anything to get started. So they just fill the form and they will automatically get the narrative structure. So that's how they quickly get into the game. I have the module Read, Summarize, and Write. Now, in this kind of thing, I have over 100 story written by adults, and the kid can make a summary of the idea, so they can borrow the idea, they can borrow the style, and then they can practice rewriting to get into the game. And then I have many others training module that like the writing workshop. And in this, I have so many videos that talk about the various aspects of writing, so to help the student to improve their grammar, the sentence, subject, predicate, all the grammar. And then they get into the composition skill, where they learn skill like building a mind map, doing a report on book, and they learn skill finding main ideas and all that kind of thing. And then they get into the basic of writing, where they know about the setting, the character, the plot, and write with the senses, show, not tell, and theme. Now that's really important. So get into all that. And I have module to help the student to improve the sentences. And then after that, they can improve a single paragraph in both fiction and non-fiction. And then finally, a major training module is called a copycat. Now, in this one, the student have a lot of prompts, the NAPLAN prompt, they have the scholarship prompt, they have the selective, writing prompt, and so they can get access to all this to practice their writing. Now, and then you probably wonder how the writing get marked. Now, what I have done is I have trained the AI to do the marking, and it is pretty good. The marking actually give the student a pretty good, accurate marking, plus with feedback, and it can also, create sample, example, or improved version of the writing that the student do. All right, so all that, and as part of all that, I have the writing competition. Now, the writing competition is a module that I designed for the student to do a piece of writing every single month. So the student on my website, and I welcome the student who get to the free side of the system, and they can all join in. Now, the idea is that every month they will write, and the writing will be marked by the AI, and the top score will rise to the top. Now, basically, from my experience, any work that can command a mark around 85% or higher is really good. So basically, if the student can get a score around 85 or higher on my website, the student would be able to get to the top 4% in a scholarship test you're writing. So the idea is that this will keep the student sharp every single month. They participate and they do a writing piece according to the prompt that I give. I create 12 different prompts, one for each of the month. Now, if the student participate in the competition and they get above 80%, they do well. Now, if they can get around 85 to 90%, you know that they will get to the top 4% in the real exam. All right. So if you are interested, get your child to sign up. You sign up for an account on my website. It could be on the free side of the system. And you don't have access into all the training modules and stuff like that. Of course you don't. But if your child is learning how to write at home or from a tutoring place or whatever, this is the opportunity to join in and compete with all the students on my website. And so just look for the score around 85%. Now, on my website, the student would be able to see the writing by other students. And so when they see, a work that get 90% or higher, they can come in and read a story, right, and see for themselves how good the story is. Then they can look at the feedback. Now, this feedback generated by AI under my training is very good. Now, so it gives the student all the idea about what's good and what not so good about the writing, and it suggests what the student can do to get to the top. So yeah, all right, guys. Yeah, it's all free. So you can just join in. Yeah, register for a free account and join in, and compete with other students. And you will have access. Your child will have access to all the support, the material, and the training modules that help kids to write really well.